So we are live, my love. Hello, Jacqueline. How are you?
Hi, Claudia. I'm so well. How are you doing?
Not too bad. So here in Australia, for the people listening all around the world, that maybe they're going through winter and like minus 20 degrees, freezing, snowing days. Here is 35, very hot degrees. We have been stuck in a loop of 35 degrees days without breeze for quite a long time, and I'm really hoping for some rain. So, what do you think, Jacqueline?
That would be very welcome. Yeah, I'm feeling every one of those degrees. Humidity is not my favorite weather.
No, not even for my hair, if you can tell.
No, it doesn't help my hair either.
It's like first world problems. But so for all the women listening to us today, I am Claudia from Nourish by Claudia, and I'm the founder of this page, of the Recover from HA support group page and the HA recovery program. And here we have today, if you haven't met her yet, clinical psychotherapist Jacqueline Byrne, specialized in eating disorder recovery. This is our third chat together, and I'm so excited to have you back, especially because I think that now is the right time to share the news. We're going to have this chat every month at the beginning of the month for the rest of 2022. So that sounds really exciting, and the reality is that it was just an excuse to get to see you every month.
We've been loving our conversations. We thought, why not welcome everyone in and share this amongst the group. But I'm so excited about this year, and was looking forward to today so much after the break, and can't wait for all the conversations that we have to come as well, and be able to respond to you guys and what comes up from the conversations. It can be something that's ongoing, and things that come up through the month and different times of year. We'll have the opportunity to keep checking in on.
Absolutely. So if you have any advice, or if you have any comment on our conversations, if you have any idea or topics that you would like to listen to or to learn more from, just please post everything below. And then we read every single one of your comments. We read every single one of your emails. So just please make sure that you reach out, and we're going to be there for you. Today, we're going to start with a very important topic, because that's something that has come across. I've been having this conversation quite a lot, especially after Christmas time. And I know that it has been happening also in your clinical practice. But, we are all excited to go on holiday, Christmas time, New Year's Eve, all excited to take some time off, to spend some time with the family. But for women suffering from disordered behaviors around food and exercise and eating disorder, can be a very challenging time, because all of a sudden you are surrounded by people that haven't seen you in a very long time. You are possibly asked to share and eat in a social setting, different foods, and very possibly you're going to be asked to get out of your routine, which may involve working out very early in the morning, or skipping breakfast, or all the other things. And then Christmas goes by, New Year's goes by, and you come back home, or you go back to the place where you normally live, and you go back to your normal routines, and it feels very tempting to revert to old behaviors, to gain the control, to go back to what you know, after feeling so out of control for so many weeks. Mm-hmm. And in the past months, during the month of January, I've had plenty of conversation with women say, Claudia, I did quite well during the Christmas break, but when I went back home, when I went back to living with my partner, with my kids, or by myself, I have been struggling with my eating disorder thoughts again, because I wanted to gain control again, to go back to, my old routine, so I could feel myself again. Have you seen that happening, Jacqueline?
Absolutely, and I do every year. I often have a bittersweet feeling leading up to Christmas, because it's something that I know is going to be, like you say, it's so welcome. I think we kind of universally crave that break, and the change of routine on the outset is very appealing often, or maybe not, maybe for some of us just to know what we're in for, or seeing family, things that can often be very stressful. But knowing that the flip side of that is probably going to destabilize a lot of people and interrupt more positive rhythms that they were in, and just all the things that can be inclusive of that time, with what family might bring up, and changes of routine, and disconnect from support that you might have, a good rhythm of support or treatment around you that very often stops for a period over this time. Means that there's something about kind of getting started again. It's a lot easier to stay in a momentum once you're in it, but getting that started again, figuring out how to get through that limbo. And as you say, like with the stresses that might come forward from changes to routine behaviors or inputs like family stresses, work stresses that come in that time, comfort seeking is such strong human nature. It's so understandable, but when that comfort seeking involves disordered behaviors around food, maybe movement, similar things, it becomes dangerous. And so appreciating, how to protect ourselves, getting back into what we had been working on prior, or what our hopes were for this year, it's something I've been spending a lot of time talking to people about so far, and returning this year as well.
Yeah, and sometimes the need of reverting back to old behaviors can be triggered by a simple comment from a person that you haven't seen for even more than 2 years. And all of a sudden, that comment is more important than all the work that someone has done for the past many, many, many months. Have you seen that happening before?
Absolutely. And it's our family of origin, if that is who we spend time with over Christmas, so the holiday period, festive period, is often the people that have the most power or ability to trigger us in many ways, that their attachment figures and parental figures are deeply ingrained in our psychology as people that are inevitably more powerful in how they affect us than probably anyone else in the world, because of that early attachment process. And then brothers and sisters and cousins and aunts and whoever else might be in the mix of that, to maybe feed back to yourself the version of yourself that you had wanted to move on from. Sometimes I use the phrase like the audience around us that's noticing our growth and noticing who we're becoming is incredibly important, because as social beings, as mammals, we don't change in isolation. We don't grow in isolation. We need that mirrored back to us to have a sense of how we're valued, how we're doing, and how we're growing, changing. And so maybe that has been your treatment team or a supportive community like Claudia's community around you. But when you go back to the old audience, the old community, and it could even just be the absence of having the former around as much in that time, different types of knowledges about yourself can emerge more. There's a phrase that often makes me laugh, that if you think you're enlightened, go and spend 2 weeks with your family. And I think that's
100%.
true. And most of us feel more regressive in those spaces. We feel like we might say or behave in ways that we wouldn't at work or with friends we've met as adults, because they know that version of us. Whereas the tendrils go back so much further with people that we've known for longer and maybe knew us when we were either less well or more dysregulated or more vulnerable in different ways. And so they hold that mirroring back, which can be really disempowering and make the stories louder that were the ones we were needing to move away from in order to make more positive growth going forward. And combining that as well with things like not being able to do what you'd usually do to either stay safe, to feel safe, or to stay in your recovery journey, because those things are so much harder to do if you're traveling or just routine is disrupted, etc. It's a significant double whammy that is understandably going to throw some of us out.
Yeah, I love how you said that, make the story louder. because sometimes it is a story. It's a story that we have been telling ourselves for the longest time. And Jacqueline, from your point of view, do you think that it's a good idea to plan the comeback from your holidays?
Yeah.
Having a plan in place of when to meet with your psychotherapist, when to meet with the dietitian, make sure that the skills is not present when you go back home to your safe environment. What do you think about that sort of planning that normally is not really talked about?
100%. I think that's really wise, and it's like your current self caring for your future self. It's like, thank you, December Jacqueline, for supporting January Jacqueline, for doing that work to plant the seeds, so it's just there, ready to go when you come back. At least planning that first session, getting the ball rolling, and then figuring out what sort of schedule around that might be the best fit once the year gets started. But it's having that in place, and maybe some environmental triggers, like you mentioned, like what not to have in your home, or having on your routine, like having cupboards that are stocked with the foods that are going to support you, or having supplements ready, or whatever it is that's part of what's nurturing you right now is absolutely going to be beneficial. I think amongst that too, kind of having almost like a plan to reunite with the version of yourself that you're wanting to be and that you've been, which could be like planned journaling sessions, or it could be therapy, it could be doing something like yoga if it's a practice that supports you, or meditation. But even having that diarized maybe is more of a prompt to reconsolidate with what you're wanting to be connecting to moving forward. So it's like being welcomed into an embrace on return, whether that's a physical return or it's just as routines and the year's getting started again, returning to the workplace, etc.
Yeah. So making sure that you have a support network in place, meaning your professional or even people that understand what you're going through, making sure that your environment is safe, making sure that your supplements are ready on the kitchen counter, that the scale is now part of your bathroom furniture, and all those little things. But you know that in January, especially December, January, and also February and March, I would say to a different extent, the diet message is very rampant, is everywhere. Whenever you pick up a magazine or you check Instagram or even the TV ads, is everywhere. New year, new you, lose the weight, become the fabulous person that you're meant to be, and da da da. All about those slogans. How can you tune down that message just a little bit so you can start hearing your healthy self a little bit more? Do you have any advice on that?
I certainly do. Breaking it into a few parts. So sometimes I talk about counter saturation, because we are saturated with this messaging. Like we're brainwashed with it. And you're so right. It's this time of year, and it's always, but it's just amped up this time of year. It's a marketing dream. It's trying to manipulate people that have been destabilized by these experiences, and the mythology of a new year and New Year's resolutions, and taking advantage of that place and time. So it's very much intensified. So anything you can do to increase your exposure to counter concepts that are authentic to you and that you believe in. For example, diet culture messaging, connecting to whether it's body positivity spaces or even neutral spaces. Like if it was, for example, looking at an Instagram feed, even following more accounts about animals, cats and dogs, funny videos, just neutral things that might not have a comment either way on body and food is more helpful, because it will facilitate space to let what you're increasingly knowing to be true take root, versus the constant disruption. It's like trying to think about something in a different way with somebody nagging in your ear and constantly interrupting you. So you need a way of at least toning down, if not silencing, that distraction, so that you can focus and develop on what you're recreating for yourself. So that would definitely be something really strongly, and a lot of that could be online. It could be spending time with people that talk about these things in a more helpful way, and vice versa, giving yourself more space from even friends that might also not yet be as aware of how their language is actually really unhelpful for you and probably others. In addition to that, it might be a good time to come back to something like journaling in clarifying your intention for yourself right now, what your values are, what you're wanting to move forward around, and being conscious of the discrepancy between that and maybe what does come up with marketing and messaging. Because part of the intelligence behind these movements are they really take advantage of the very quick automated thinking of our brains, of our neurology. So we don't have a lot of space and time to discern what we're being presented with and think through the facts of that and think through the truthfulness of it. It's just very reactionary and momentary, and it's accumulative. So it's not just one ad, but it's scrolling through hundreds a day, perhaps being exposed to so many inputs of that data a day that has a capacity tipping effect. And so the more that you can bring awareness to what it is you're actually being exposed to. And as a second point to that, really being conscious of the intention behind a lot of that messaging, that there's a product to be sold with you buying into the idea of new year, new you, if there's a magazine to be sold, if there's to develop your critical thinking around this space, and how even tapping into a bit of passion, if not anger, around it, that you won't let yourself be manipulated, and they're not going to be successful if they're targeting you as you become wiser and more resourced.
There is something that you just said that I really resonated with, because this morning every Tuesday we run the HA community group call, and I made an analogy about swimming in an ocean, which is the diet industry. You know, that when you were a little child, you were like in the sand, building sand castles, and then someone told you, let's learn how to swim. And then all of a sudden you're basically floating in this diet industry, and it's really hard to get out of it. And sometimes, especially at this time of the year, it's like swimming against currents, because everyone is telling you something completely different from what you may be hearing and what you're really doing. And I know that journaling is an incredible tool to get you there, to get you back to your whys, to get you back to your conscious self. But I know that some of the women that are listening today, they have this thought that, oh, journaling is not gonna work. And they may be rolling their eyes. I tried that, so I don't have the time to do journaling.
Mm-hmm.
What do you normally say when you're faced with this kind of, I don't know, comeback?
I think that speaks to readiness and where we are in sometimes it's like someone's capacity to advocate for the part of themselves that wants more for them, but you know, whether it's called the healthy self, the part of themselves that can see what's going on isn't working and it's not going to be facilitating the goals for their life that they want. And they're, you know, if it was working and if it was a complete life philosophy, there would be fullness and happiness and abundance, and there wouldn't be a questioning of it. So if there's an itch that something isn't right, or if there's a deep wound showing that something isn't right, then we have to question what the validity is of the messages that go along with that. I often use the analogy, and it sounds extreme, but I really think it's apt, of coming out of a cult when we talk about the diet industry for exactly those reasons. You know, we're raised in it. We're told it's just the way it is. We're told messages about our body that you're just someone that's going to have to watch your weight. You're just big bones. We're told these things often when we're very small, and then as we're ready for more, then the diet culture is ready to spoon more onto our plate and offer us more and more complex ideas, and we might be drawn to slightly different things within that, but it's often running and it's very much entrenched in our psyche and in our belief systems. So of course it's actually a healthy sign to have some resistance to that, because if you were raised in, say, a certain religion and someone told you that's actually completely wrong, it would be odd to completely sign up to that new belief, or to let go of everything you've been told your whole life. it's too much to do it all at once. And so that resistance is a sign of a psyche that's trying to protect itself and doesn't want to collapse the scaffolding without having evidence of something else that it can rely on and work with. So that's not a negative thing at all. It's quite life affirming that that person is wanting to hold on to some degree to what they know and how they've known to be in the world. But I would want to water those seeds of curiosity of if any of this resonates as true, what are ways you can continue those conversations and explore that more? Because change is only going to happen when there's space for it. And it can be theoretical before it's behavioral. I think it's okay to, and often that's how therapy begins, is conversations about change before actual change happens, so that someone feels safe enough to be able to do it. But it's finding space and generally just isn't for everyone. Like anything isn't for anyone. It might not be meditating for you. It might not be X, Y, and Z for you, but finding a way, whether it's talking to a person, listening to more podcasts around this topic, certainly reading books. And you posted some great suggestions of books the other day. There's so many incredible books that contribute to this space that offer an alternative knowledge that we can then bring in to support our lives more. And it's, with that idea of we don't have time, I think part of that's it speaks to the cultural phenomenon of hyperproductivity in business, which is kind of part of the problem. It sort of sits next to something like the diet industry, is the toxic positivity and toxic productivity ideas and movements and the products that they sell as well, and the benefits that has that are not in our best interest. But starting to look into that too, that if at the end of the day, how important is this to you and how much does it need to be prioritized? And that's where the change readiness, to come full circle back to that idea, comes into play. Because if you're not ready yet to take movement forward, that is okay. You don't have to. I think disordered eating disorders are one of those things where people say things like, oh no, she won't change until she's ready, or there's no point until they want this for themselves. I don't agree with that, not completely, because someone will never be completely ready to gain weight when they've come from an eating disorder. They will never be completely ready to get to potentially give up the thing that's been a life raft to them. And so we just have to start finding a space and time to explore it and touch on it and maybe grow it, if that ends up being what more of you decides is right for you.
I love that you said that there is not the perfect time to start ED recovery. There is never the right time. You will never be 100% ready, because that's the kind of conversation that I have a lot of. I am 7 out of 10 committed. I am 8 out of 10 committed. That's a lot. That's perfect. That's a perfect place where to start. Yeah. Because if you were 10 out of 10, possibly we would not be having this conversation. You will be recovered already. It's very hard to get a 7 out of 10 commitment from recovery, from ED recovery. So you shared with us lots of tips today, and I would like to sum them up, because I'm thinking about the specific situation of someone coming back to their, let's say someone coming back to their apartment after going somewhere on holiday, seeing their parents, receiving all the comments, eating all the foods, being completely out of their comfort zone because they couldn't exercise as much. And they opened the door and okay, everything was pre-programmed. So the scale is not there, the supplements are there, but what can they do to decrease the anxiety that it's gonna come up sooner or later, considering the messages that we have just described? So number one for you is, one of them for you is definitely journaling, right? And yeah,
from a place of discerning your values and thinking about what you want to grow, like what in you do you want to grow, and then journaling on that. So that we have to be careful, I think, with anything that is amplified gets stronger. So coming back to that, really clear, focused, directional journaling would be helpful in that circumstance.
Yeah, and someone once told me, what you focus on grows, right? So if in 2022 you're listening now and you want to recover, Just focus on the thought of recovery instead of thinking of fighting it. So you're going to give yourself the best chance to truly recover once and for all. And obviously, second tip is get supported, get professional support. Community support, absolutely, but sometimes even the women that are part of the recovery from HA support group, they don't have the answers. They're going through the journey themselves. And some of the tips that work for some women don't specifically work for others. So getting the individualized, customized one-on-one help sometimes can really make or break recovery. And I don't want to sound harsh, but that's what I've noticed anyway, and what I've also experienced on myself. Would you agree with that, Jacqueline?
Absolutely. And statistically, the research shows us that people that are without professional support are so much likely to have complex and enduring eating disorders from a psychological point of view, but also physical complications. And there's no surprise in that. I think it makes so much sense. So investing in the right professional, finding someone that connects with you, that's the right person at the right time, is probably the best investment you could make.
And you also said it very clearly, investing, which means investing money, but also time to gain your health back. And it's a really difficult concept for someone suffering from an eating disorder, because they have not invested time or money or anything to get better, because the eating disorder has been so loud for such a long time. So deciding to take the first step and to ask for help can be a huge milestone for so many people out there. But it's worth it, 100% worth it. And for all of you listening, Jacqueline, she's gonna be back with us in March. And if you want to see her on a one-on-one in a clinical practice, she's based in Sydney, but she sees everyone on Zoom. Just let me know, send her a message on Instagram, Wings and Quills, but I'm gonna post everything below. Send me a message so I can put the two of you in contact. And if instead you want to work with Jacqueline and also being part of the HA recovery protocol, coaching protocol, you're more than welcome to do so. Just ask me for more information. And we will see you next time with a different and juicy topic. Well, did I forget anything, Jacqueline?
I think that was beautiful, Claudia. I think there's so much that we could elaborate on and talk more about, and that's why I'm so glad that we have these conversations to continue in the months to come. But I hope those highlights are helpful for people, and between now and March, I hope that it's possible to put some of those things into place.
Yes, let's make 2022 the year of recovery for so many of the ladies listening, or the people listening. If you have any suggestions and you're tuning in right now, just please post them. So Jacqueline and I, as I said before, are gonna read them all. And so I say goodbye to all the ladies listening, and good night for some of them. Thank you, Jacqueline, for being here.
Good night. Thank you so much, Claudia.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.